MARLOW, bass player and vocalist of Heaven, the band Heaven. Yeah, fire away, mate.
Fantastic, Laurie. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome, mate. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. So, Heaven have announced a return to the stage for a couple of shows this year in Sydney. So, firstly, welcome back.
Yeah, mate. Thank you very much. It's been a long time coming. Yeah, I mean, we just we were starting to get things rolling again in 2012. We did a tour here that was pretty successful. And then we were going to go ahead and do some stuff, and like we had Sweden Rock lined up, but Alan, our singer, got sick and consequently died of cancer. So that sort of put a spanner in the works. Otherwise, we would have been sort of up and running around probably 2015, 2016.
All right. Before we get into the shows, let's explore the band a bit more in case there's people out there that don't quite know too much about you guys. But you founded Heaven back in 1980. So what was the musical climate like back then that gave birth to Heaven, and where did you fit in those days?
Yeah, 1980. Yeah. So what happened was that I left Adelaide, where I immigrated from London out to South Australia to Adelaide with my family, and I've been a musician around Adelaide for a number of years, and decided that it was, if I was going to get anywhere, move forward with things, I had to move to somewhere like Melbourne or Sydney. So I picked Sydney. And when I got here, I just started looking around for players. And one guy that I lived around the corner from him, actually. And I used to go and see the band play, and that was a band called Swanee, which was Jimmy Barnes's brother. And I struck up a friendship with the guitar player, Kelly, and I used to take him, because I had a car and he didn't, I used to take him to gigs. And, we just sort of started talking about things, and he said he wasn't sort of happy staying with what he was doing, and he wanted to move into something different. And I said, well, mate, what's your interest? And he said, well, I love this band Van Halen that's just hit the scene in the last couple of years. And I went, right. I said, so do I. And I said, why don't you come and join me, and we'll put a band together. So that was the first step in the evolution of Heaven. And then when he joined, we were discussing about who we were going to get as a singer. And I said, well, I'd been working in Adelaide with a singer called Alan Fryer. He was in a band called Fat Lip. And I said, I was actually in a band before that called Heroes with him. Right. I said, he's a pretty good singer. He goes, is that Scots bloke in Adelaide that always hassles me every time I'm in Adelaide? I said, yeah, that's him. So we rang Alan, and Alan had always loved Kelly's playing and that. So Alan said, all right, well, I'll come up to Sydney over the next weekend, and we'll have a jam. So we did that, and we got another guy in playing drums for it that we didn't end up using, but Alan liked what was going on with it, and we were just doing a few covers at that point. And he went back to Adelaide on the Monday and basically packed up his house and moved to Sydney.
Oh, yeah.
In the meantime, while he was packing up, he asked me, he said, well, are you going to get, playing drums and second guitar? And I said, what about the boys that we used to play with in Heroes? And he goes, oh, yeah, Don Claproth and Robbie Hanna. And I said, yeah. I said, he goes, yeah, I'll call them. So he called Robbie Hanna and Don Claproth, and they came up, and same thing. They just shut shop in Adelaide and came up to Sydney and joined the band, and we started sort of doing gigs around the traps. Alan had already he'd finished up with a band called Fat Lip that basically that they'd done some shows in Sydney, and they also they had shows left to do, but the band sort of split.
All right.
So Alan said, well, why don't we call it Fat Lip and we can do those shows. So we did that. So we went under the name Fat Lip at first, and we finished these shows that Alan had been contracted for, and so we just started doing that. But also, I must add that Alan had done some auditions for AC/DC.
Oh wow!
And he'd been to Albert Studios, and with George and Harry, and they took out Bond's vocals and put Alan's in, and he did a pretty good job, I might say. But Malcolm and Angus already had their sights on Brian Johnson, and Brian got the gig, obviously. Alan didn't. But it was close there, from what I can tell.
Cool.
Yeah. So he just come through all that and a bit disappointed that he hadn't got that. So he had a fire in his belly to get Fat Lip up and running, And at that stage, the agency we were with was a smaller agency. I think it was called Sphere. Can't remember exactly, but at that same point, we'd only been going a few months, and we got contacted by AC/DC's old manager, Michael Browning. Now, Michael had been, after him and AC/DC did a split, he was looking for another rock band. And Lobby Lloyd from Lobby Lloyd and the Coloured Balls was actually doing agency work for Harbour Agency in Sydney. And Michael said to him, do you know of any good solid rock bands out there? He goes, yeah. He said, saw this band the other week, a band called Fat Lip. Great, mate, they're great. And he told Michael about how he knew Alan had gone for the job with AC/DC. So Michael came out and saw us out at the back of Blacktown somewhere. I can't remember exactly. And, we were sort of waiting for this bloke to walk in, this millionaire bloke in a suit and tie and all that. And there's this bloke walks in, T-shirt, stubbies and thongs.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And we were sort of like shocked. But, yeah, we got talking to him, and, he wanted to sign the band up. So we ended up signing with Michael. But he didn't like the name Fat Lip. He thought that the name wasn't good enough to sort of get it on the international market. So, over the coming weeks, there was, names were getting bandied around and stuff. And I don't know who it was exactly, but somebody come up with Heaven Sent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it might have been Michael's wife, Julie, that might have come up with that. And it got cut down to Heaven, and we all liked it. We went, right, okay, so we'll go with that. And that's how the name sort of came about.
Yeah, cool.
And Michael, because of the AC/DC contact, Michael had a lot of people in the industry that he knew. Got us signed up to RCA Records here in Australia, and what was called CBS back then, which is now Sony. I think Sony took it over in America, and most territories of the world were under CBS Records.
Yeah, right.
We put out the first album. Did all right. It was a low budget album. Didn't have a lot of money to play with, but it came out okay. And it was enough to get us sort of noticed a bit overseas. And then Michael started working on, we were touring Australia, like it was crazy. Basically, I think one year we did 300 and something odd gigs in a year. There were doubles and triples every weekend, like a Friday and a Saturday night. We were doing triple gigs. So we'd start over at the North Shore, at the Royal Antler at Narrabeen, and That would be the early spot, and then our road crew would take the gear down the road about 20 minutes to Mona Vale Hotel, where we'd do a middle spot there, and then whilst that was going on, there was a second lot of gear would be going to Sylvania Pub, which is the other side of town, and basically we'd finish the middle spot and we'd shoot over to Sylvania to do a late spot there.
Like you would have been pissed by the second show, wouldn't you? You would have been pissed by the second show, wouldn't you?
Oh, mate, yeah. But I mean, we were in our 20s and, like physically pretty fit and all that. And for us, it was just great fun. And then, we'd leave the gig, finish the gig at 2:00 in the morning and probably drive to Melbourne or something like that, or up to Brisbane or something to do it, get ready for the week's shows up there. So it was pretty full on.
Yeah, it sounds it.
Yeah.
And like you struck a winning formula, like with a nice blend of pub rock with some metal undertones. But was that sound by design, or was it something you just sort of stumbled across?
No, it just came about. There was no formula for what we did. We just got into rehearsal room when we realised that to get ahead we had to write songs, and none of us had written before, except for Kelly. Actually, Kelly did a little bit of writing with Swanee, but it was just what came out. It had a sort of a certain sort of magic to it, but probably Kelly was like a Van Halen head, but I was sort of more into probably Judas Priest and stuff like that, Sabbath maybe a bit at that time, and of course we were all into AC/DC, so that's just the formula that came out, really.
All right. You mentioned being signed to a US label. So after you released your debut here, you went over to the US and you toured with people like Judas Priest, Motley Crue, Black Sabbath. Here's like, what was that period like for the band? It would have been great times.
Oh yeah. Well, what happened there was after CBS signed us, and we obviously with a large company like that, and they want you to tour the album and stuff, so they give you like tour support money to go and tour somewhere. Originally, we were going to go to England and Europe and tour with Saxon.
Okay.
But what happened there was that Saxon were charging their bands £10,000, what they call buy-on. Yeah. So you'd pay them £10,000 and they'd let you do the tour.
Man, that's a shitload.
Yeah. Well, especially back then.
Yeah.
That was probably like 30 or 40,000 these days. So Michael, in his wisdom, and we'd already supported quite a lot of international acts here in Australia. We'd already did Australia with Motorhead. We did Ian Gillan's own band, Gillan. And in 1982, we actually did the Number of the Beast Australian tour, Iron Maiden. And what happened was that Michael, in his wisdom, sort of said, no, well, we're not going to blow all our money on giving it to Saxon for that tour. So he went shopping around and he was able to get us Judas Priest in America.
Wow.
So we'd been through CBS Records. We'd been signed to a sort of sister company called Brighton Records. And the guy called, what's his name? Michael Kleffner, who was instrumental in getting AC/DC into America. And he loved the band, and he helped get us onto the Judas Priest tour, and also with ATI, the agency, the big New York agency. And we had Bill Elson, who was I think he might have been Kiss's agent, and I think he was Judas Priest's agent as well, and he was this big time agent back in the day. So in '82 I think it was October, November, we finished the Number of the Beast tour, which went down a storm. We had a ball with the Maiden boys, so they're great lads, and we got treated really well, and we were received very, very well with the Australian audiences, which was great, and we chuffed off to LA, and we had a couple of weeks in LA. Alan arrived there about a week before us to do some interviews and stuff like that before we got there. A couple of weeks it might have been. Then we embarked on the Screaming for Vengeance tour.
Jesus.
It started off in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And can't remember exactly how long it went for. I think it was a few months. And there was a lot of mayhem on that tour, mate.
What's your best tour story from that one?
Oh, mate, a lot of stories I can't tell you. But we had a ball, mate, and like we were doing like 10 and 15,000 seaters.
Yeah, right.
Some up to 20,000, and once again, the Priest boys were fantastic. That we got treated really well. And we started to get the ball rolling really well there. I mean, people really liked the band. Of course, being Australian, it was it was one of those things that it was a new sort of new thing, because I mean AC/DC had gone through, and they'd been a big hit there, and Rose Tattoo were actually going through at that time too through there, and they were doing really well. So it was the Australian flavour. It was really good. As soon as you started talking, people wanted to know you. The Aussie accent and that. So we did the Screaming for Vengeance tour, and it was fantastic. And then we got back to LA, and we went into pre-production and writing for the second album, Where Angels Fear to Tread.
Mm. And that one, you ended up having Ronnie James Dio, Lita Ford, and Glenn Hughes guest on that. Like back then, these days it's common for that to happen, but back then, guest spots weren't a big thing. So you obviously had a bit of respect.
Well, yeah, we did. we commanded a fair bit of respect, like for what we were doing, but also that was Alan, our singer, because Al was he was like the how can I put it nicely? He was like the class clown,
right?
Right. He was a funny guy, and everyone loved him. And he used to strike up friendships with just about everyone, and he used to play tricks on people all the time, and sort of, he was just a good bloke to be around a lot of the time. And so he'd go out drinking, and he liked to drink, did Big Al, and he used to go down to the Rainbow Room like after recording. So we do a full day of recording, and then we'd all be knackered. We go somewhere and just have a drink. Alan would go down the Rainbow Room where all the rock star people used to hang out. And he'd be drinking with them, and he'd say, "Come back to the studio. Come back with me. We'll put something down." And they go, "Oh, come on, Al. No, we're just drinking." No, come back. Put something on the album for us.
All right.
Yeah. So and they would. And So Ronnie Dio, he put down some backing vocals in Where Angels Fear to Tread. He's under the name Evil Eyes on the album. If you look at the album cover, it just says Evil Eyes. He didn't want it down as Ronnie Dio. He just said Evil Eyes.
Yeah, right.
But you can tell straight off it's Ronnie.
Wouldn't be able to miss him.
That voice, Lita, she did some backing vocals on a song called Madness. There's a bit of a breakdown in the middle of the song, and there's like a nurse talking to a psycho patient, and she's talking to him, and he's answering. She did that. Glenn Hughes, he sang on a song called "Stole My Heart," and you can't miss his voice, mate. I mean, the guy's just a freak.
Yeah.
And you know, thanks, Glenn, because I've got to do those parts now. And I do have a reasonably high voice, but God, that guy's voice is just incredible. Yeah, but yeah, so, and that's sort of how things came about. There was also Alan got drunk with a guy that was the sax player for Rod Stewart's band, a guy called Jimmy Zavala. And so, of course, what happened, we got this song Rock School, which was sort of, I didn't have anything to do with writing that song, but it was Kelly and Alan sort of getting like back then you had to have a song that appealed to radio.
Yeah.
So that was the sort of song that, and Michael Brown used to push for us to try and write a radio song. So that was the idea of Rock School. So he got Jimmy along and just threw some sax down. Although Jimmy's name got spelt wrongly on the album, his name's Zavala, but they put it down as Zazla or something.
Well, it sounds pretty hard to spell.
Hey?
It sounds pretty hard to spell.
Yeah. So that's how all those people came about, Chris. Just Alan going out and getting pissed with them.
That's awesome. So they may or may not have been slightly pissed when they recorded their parts.
Yeah, good. Yeah, quite possibly, mate.
Right, moving on. Now, if I've done my research right here, like after Knocking on Heaven's Door came out in 1985, the band went through a period of inactivity. You had a few reunions, but they never really got off the ground before you officially reformed around 2022. So what had changed to make you decide to have a proper red hot crack again?
Okay, so once we'd finished, we like after doing that Where Angels Fear to Tread album, we went out on tour with Motley Crue. All right, I'll give you a bit of the story leading up to 85. So we went out with Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil tour, and we spent 6 or 8 weeks with Motley Crue, and of course they thought they were big drinkers and party animals at the time, and they learned a lesson when they come out with us.
Nice.
Yeah. And yeah, we had lots of fun on the tour, and the beginning of the tour it started in Denver, and we were snowed in. There were blizzards, and we were snowed in for I don't know, about a week, I guess, something like that. We couldn't really go anywhere. We could go across the road to a bar called Donny's Bar and drink there for a few nights, and then snowplows came in, and we were able to get over to Motley Crue's hotel and hung out with them and created mayhem in the hotel, and all the guests were arcing up and complaining, because a lot of older people complaining about our antics and stuff like that. And then after that, we went on to do the Kiss tour, and we spent. It was the Animalised tour, I think, from memory. They had "Lick It Up," that song "Lick It Up" on it, I think. Oh, yeah. And that was excellent. Gene and Paul really liked the band, and Gene actually at one point was interested in managing us.
Oh wow!
And because he had his company Man of 1,000 Faces, and he actually sent us letters and we had phone calls, but we were it was a tight contract with Michael at that point, with management and recording and all that sort of stuff. So we did that, and that was all over the Midwest of America. Then after that, we came back to Australia. We did one tour in 1984. We did all the TV shows, Countdown and Sounds and everything else that was going on. Oh, what was that Donny Sutherland show? What was that called? Eh?
Can't be too memorable if you can't remember it.
Oh no, Donny Sutherland Sounds. That's right. We did all those sorts of shows. We did a full tour of Australia, and we came back to Sydney, and there was a bit of unrest between Alan and the rest of the band, and basically we split up. We were looking for a new singer. Alan went back to America because he was going to get married. He went back there, and we were finding it hard to replace Alan with anyone, and he sort of went over there and he talked to another management company about Heaven, but he didn't tell them that it wasn't the same members.
Oh,
right? Yeah. And then he threw together a band with some well-known players from New York and from Los Angeles, and they signed themselves. They got signed up as Heaven.
Sure.
Meanwhile, we're back in Australia. We're trying to put something together, but Michael Browning sold the name to, it was either Alan or the management company.
Wow.
Because Michael actually, he'd owned the name at that point. And so that was the end of the Australian version of Heaven for a while. The American band did an album. They only did one album. Did a bit of touring, but within, I think, 18 months, it was dead. Nobody really, the American version of it didn't really take off. So from about 86 to 92, there was nothing happening, not with anyone. Alan was just doing some local gigs around where he lived in Dallas-Fort Worth, using local players. And if you have a look on Wikipedia, there's a conga line of all these guys that did one gig with him or two gigs with him, and they're all saying they were with Heaven, you know. But yeah. So he did that till 1992 when I can't remember. He came back here for a holiday and he contacted, I think it was myself, and said he wanted to do a couple of gigs with us. So we got the dates of when he was going to be in Sydney, because he went to Adelaide to see the family, and then he came up to Sydney, and we got a show at the Collector Tavern in Parramatta. I don't think it's there anymore, and the Bridge Hotel in Balmain. We did two shows, and it was packed house both nights. So Alan went back to America, and we kept in contact and stuff. And about 1996, he came back out again, and we did another couple of shows. And we just did this every few years, you know, just as a bit of fun. And then it was 2001. I was talking to a guy that had like a management company, and he also worked for an international promoter. And he said to me, "Oh, did you hear Judas Priest are coming out?" And I said, "No, I didn't know." He goes, "Yeah." He said, "They're coming out. As the tour's going to be called the Demolition Tour, because their album's called the Demolition." And I went, "Righto." I said, "Who's doing the support?" He goes, "Well, no one yet." And I think it was Kevin Jacobson he was working for. And I said, "Mate, any chance that we could get on that tour?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm sure you can." He said, "You toured with them in the States, didn't you?" I said, "Absolutely, we did." So he got on to Priest's management, and I got on to Alan, and I said, "Look, we've got a chance of doing the Demolition Tour with Priest. Do you want to do it?" And he goes, "Absolutely." So it all got lined up, and yeah, we did the tour, and Alan came out and we rehearsed the band up, and at that period too, we also wrote some new songs, and we went on tour with Priest, and it was like old times, you know.
Right.
we had a ball with them, you know, all great guys, and so that was for about 3 weeks. They were here in Australia, and they did Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. And at the end of that tour, we basically went into the studio and we just threw down a demo of these new songs that we'd written. And it was Alan had contacted somebody he knew in Dallas, a record company called Pulse Records. So the demo was paid for by them. We did the demo, but they just sat on the album. They never released it.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, to this day, if they're still around, they still got it. And then nothing happened till 2012. I kept in contact with Al over the years and stuff, but you know, we all had other things that we were doing. 2012, Alan was coming over for another holiday to see his family. He said, line up a tour. He said, I'll come out, bring the family out, and they can see the Fryer family in Adelaide and that, and we'll do some shows. So I contacted our agent, Harbour, and they got on the case, and they put together a run of shows right through Australia, and Alan arrived here, and at that point too, Kelly wasn't involved with it, but we had Rowan Robertson from Dio.
Oh, yeah.
He came out because originally it was supposed to be Mitch Perry from the American lineup of Heaven was going to do it, because Alan and Mitch were very close. And Alan said to me, he said, if we do this tour, I want Mitch to do it. I said, yeah, no worries, all good. You know, that's if you know, Al, it's fine, whatever you want to do. And Kelly sort of lost interest in the Heaven thing at that point. So we got John Hayes in on second guitar, and we got Rowan Robertson in because Mitch said yes to it, but all of a sudden Lita Ford, who he was her permanent guitar player, right, rang him and said, well, no, you can't go to Australia, I've got a tour here.
Oh, jeez.
So he rang Al and he rang me and basically said, look, I can't do it. Lita's going out on the road. He said, but I've got a friend who would love to do it. His name is Rowan Robertson. He was the guitar player on Lock Up the Wolves album of Ronnie James Dio. And we went, oh, fuck yeah, heard he's playing, you know, thought, yeah, awesome, you know. So Rowan flew out. We flew him out. We had something like 4 weeks rehearsals, did a couple of quiet shows on the side, just to, you know, out in the country, just to just to iron all the bugs out. And then we started tour Australia. It was packed houses every night, except for one night, Geelong. Geelong was a bit of a fizzer because there's a massive storm came in, and I've never seen rain like it. The rain was just going sideways, you know, with all the heavy winds and stuff. And so that night was not the greatest, but it was all right because it was just sort of we use it as sort of like a paid rehearsal. So we did Geelong, we did Adelaide, we did Geelong, we did Melbourne, Sydney, and a few shows in Brisbane. And it went really well. And it was great having Rowan. Rowan's a lovely bloke. He's a real sweetheart. It's from Cambridge in UK.
Yeah.
And mate, if you're not familiar with what he does, look him up, mate. Sensational player.
I'll check him out.
Absolutely. Ronnie took him on when he was like 17.
Yeah, wow.
You know,
what an apprenticeship.
Sorry?
What an apprenticeship.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So and he's worked with a lot of people over the years, like throughout the States and stuff like that. He lives over there now in the States, and he does a lot of work with the singer of Rough Cut, Paul Shortino, and Mitch Perry, and Doug Aldrich from Whitesnake, and all those sorts of guys. So he's in well with them, and they've got like a residency at one of those casinos that they do. So look him up, mate. He's a sensational player.
Sure. Sure.
And then 2012 went by, and Alan was discussing about doing more stuff, and we said, yeah, and like, what did you have in mind, Alan? And he said, well, I'd like to do Sweden rock. So we said, yeah, well, that'd be great. So anyway, time went past, and it was about, I think it might have been about late 2013 or 2014. He got diagnosed with cancer. And it was cancer in his spine from memory. But he rang me and he goes, look, he said, I'll be right. He said, Sweden Rock have sent me through a notification that they want us on, and I've got contracts here. I've just got to sign them. And he said, I just want to make sure that my doctor says I'm okay to travel, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, he just went downhill very quickly. And then June 2015, I think we were supposed to be in Sweden Rock 2015, but he couldn't travel. He was so sick. And then he passed away June 2015.
Yeah, right.
And then the band sat idle for the next 4.5 years. We were also waiting on our drummer Joe, but Joe kept on putting up barriers and all sorts of things. We like every time we wanted to do something, he couldn't do it, and it was just like, well, mate, you're either into it or you're not into it. So we ended up having to replace him.
Mick's not a bad replacement.
Sorry,
Mick O'Shea's not a bad replacement.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. So we got Mick in, and we just started getting the ball rolling, and everything was sounding great. And I got, because John Hayes, one of the early guitar players, was in the band as well, and I got in a friend of mine, Steve Down. We call him Stav because we worked together for years, and there were two Steves in the other band that we were in. So one was Steve and one was Stav, because Stavros is Greek for Steve.
All right, yeah.
So Stevie Down joined the band, and we got a friend of mine in to replace Alan. I must say that I talked to the Fryer family first before we went ahead with this. I wanted them to have their blessing.
Yeah,
before I went ahead and did it.
Yes, that's
and
right.
they loved the idea. And Alan had said to me before he died, he actually said to me, Loz, if anything happens and I don't pull through, I want you to keep it going.
Man, that's super cool.
So that's what I'm doing. And we replaced Al with a guy called Pete Millwood. Now, Pete hasn't done a lot of band work, but he's done a lot of session work.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And there's a lot of stuff you would hear on radio that's him, that you wouldn't even know it.
Yeah, right.
Sensational voice. He can sound like Rob Halford, But then again, he could sound like David Coverdale, or he could sound like John Farnham, or he could sound like Angry Anderson. The guy is just he can mold his voice, and that's why they used to use him through Sony Records and doing session work, and also for commercials and stuff, because he can emulate anything. And he'd been a mate of mine for many years, and he's a great bloke. So I got him involved. But then as soon as we basically, we'd had like a month's rehearsal, and then bloody COVID hit, didn't it?
Yeah.
That killed everything. That just absolutely killed everything. We couldn't go out to rehearse. We couldn't do gigs. Luckily, the boys were all sort of, strong members, and they all, held in there. And it wasn't till like 2022 when I think that's when sort of COVID was sort of past, and we could get on with our lives. That we could start rehearsing and doing a few shows. But I guess it's the same all over the world. But there was a switch that had been flicked in the music industry. Everything had changed.
Yeah.
People were more interested in seeing cover bands than they were original bands. There were pubs and clubs that, instead of paying bands to play, you had to pay them to use the room. And it was just like, what the fuck is going on here? But anyway, so these days, it's a lot harder to get shows.
Yeah, it's changing.
Unless you're a cover band. I mean, and good luck to the cover bands. I'm not knocking them. They're out there doing it and making money, and that's I don't have a problem with that. But for us original bands, the industry had just been killed by COVID. So these days, when you do a show, unless it's out in the country, right, like most of the city shows, you actually have to hire the room, then hire the production people, like sound guy, lighting guy, whatever you need, right? And then you have to pay the venue a portion of the door money.
So they're taking no risk at all.
Sorry?
They're taking no risk at all, basically.
No, they're not. They're making money off you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also, in some cases, they actually ask you for 10% of your merch money.
Oh, yes, I've heard that. That's criminal. That should not be allowed.
No, it shouldn't be. But this is what they're doing. They're saying, well, if you're going to sell T-shirts and stuff on our premises, we want 10% of it. And you might have put out 10 grand on T-shirts and stuff yourself. Your band's paid for it, right? And you expect to get that money back, but these people want 10% of it. It's like, no, that can't happen. But that's the way it is these days, and unfortunately for us, we just have to roll with it. So it becomes extremely hard, because to put on a show,
it's actually costing.
Like for us to walk into a show, it generally costs us, I don't know, $1,200, $1,500 straight up out of our pocket to put the show on, and then we sell tickets. We have to sell tickets to make that money back. So, yeah. But they don't give us 10% of the bar takings, do they?
They don't even give you any free drinks these days, mate, because it's against licensing.
Yeah.
That leads to your next show, actually. You've got a show coming up at Inferno Rock Room in Sydney on November the 7th with Department of Gloom, No Bull, and Stone Rising.
That's correct. Yeah. Looking forward to that. Yeah, it's going to be great. Stone Rising have worked with us many times. They're a great little band. They're full-on hard rock. Chick singer, and she's got fucking attitude, let me tell you.
Good.
close friends of mine, and she really gives it her all when she gets out and sings. Department of Gloom, Lino D has been a friend of mine probably close to 40 years, I'd say, from when he was in Candy Harlots.
Yeah, I remember the Candy
Yeah,
Harlots.
yeah, back in those days.
Yeah.
And no ball. Well, this is a young guy that's coming up through the ranks. He's, I think, what's his name, James Van Hest. I've heard good reports about him. Hard working boy. I'm really looking forward to checking out their set that night. But yeah, mate, it's going to be a great show. Yeah, like you said, November the 7th, the Bootleggers in Newtown, Sydney.
Nice. And you got another one at the Bridge Hotel on Friday, December the 13th with the Salute Savage show?
We do. I don't have the name of the support band for that yet. We're still sort of sussing out who we're going to use for it. But that's going to be a bit of a special show because we've been asked to do a salute to Black Sabbath. So because of the fact we toured with Black Sabbath on the Born Again tour in America, there's a bit of a connection there. And when we were approached about it, we sort of thought, well, look, we're not a cover band, but to honour some people that have been a big part of, metal, the real godfathers of metal, and because the fact we toured with them for, I think it was 3 months, we decided, we'll do a set, like a 6-song salute to Black Sabbath.
Awesome.
So it's just something that we feel that we'd like to do. So it's only going to be for one night.
Yeah.
If it goes well, we might do it, another night. So the December the 7th, that's December the 13th at the Bridge, and that'll have the Sabbath set in there as well.
Very nice. Now I'm running out of time because I've got another interview shortly, but I've got to ask: is this just a live reunion for the band, or do you plan on writing and recording as well?
Oh no, we've got songs ready.
Yeah,
we're going to be recording next year.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Is it going to be the same sort of stuff, or are you going to bring it back a bit modern?
The stuff that we're writing, the way I see it, it's going to be probably a little heavier than what we used to be.
Oh, nice.
Because I mean, like, being an 80s band, they called us metal, but we're nowhere near as heavy as the modern day bands, metal bands. That we're back sort of like the old British metal type. What do they call it?
New wave.
Yeah, new era of heavy metal or something like back in the day. So we're more like that. So we don't. There's no screamo with us or any hardcore or anything like that. But it will be tougher.
Very nice. And there'll be more live shows coming up, I'm assuming.
Oh, absolutely. We've got a tour of Japan around the end of April, beginning of May.
Yep.
We've got some dates in Melbourne, tentative dates for March. Queensland, we got some of them around March, April. And as far as I know, that's all we've got so far up till sort of June. Of course, there'll be Sydney dates in that as well, which, I mean, they usually book us about 3 months out. So we're having a little hiatus over from December the 13th. We're going to have a couple of months off just to solidify the new songs, get them ready for recording. And then we'll just go out and hit the pubs and clubs and have a bit of a tour of Japan.